I get the good fortune of being the state director here at USDA Rural Development. So it's an honor to be with you and to share with your listeners a little bit of information about some programs we thought they might be interested in.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, Erin, how you came. You used to be a representative here in North Dakota, and how did you become the director of rural development? How did that come about?
Isn't life strange?
Right?
I actually was trained as a math teacher. So I started my professional career as a middle school math teacher, which I feel like prepared me in ways I had no idea would prepare me to enter into politics. So I was elected to the North Dakota Senate, where I served for 7.5 years, and was invited by the White House to serve in this role. And had to resign my legislative seat a little earlier than I would have liked. I had made the decision not to run for office again, but wanted to continue in public service, and this has been an incredible opportunity to do that.
So what exactly do you do in your position right now?
I support a team of professionals who, so ultimately what I've learned in my time, almost a year, I've been in the job almost 1 year, is that many North Dakotans are really familiar with USDA, mostly through some of our sister agencies like the Farm Services Agency or NRCS or the Food and Nutrition Service. And fewer of them are as familiar with rural development and really the significant impact that we have in investing in rural communities. So ultimately, rural development operates very similarly to a bank. We provide financing options and money to support technical assistance in the form of grants, loans, and loan guarantees to rural communities, small businesses, cooperatives, and to support home ownership, all in rural communities. So that's what we do.
Interesting.
That is super interesting. And you guys have...
Last fiscal year, we obligated more than $531 million into North Dakota's smallest towns and tribal communities. So that's why I think, after being here for a year and working with the team here, I've realized this is one of the best kept secrets. And my job is to make sure that it's not really a secret.
That's super cool. Well, with that you said it was $531 million that has been invested into small towns across North Dakota, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is a good chunk of money. And you were kind of describing it a little bit, but within that money that goes to these towns, what is it, again, being used for that betters the towns and improves their development?
Sure. So one of our colleagues here on the team in North Dakota describes it, the programs at Rural Development, that we could almost build a town from the ground up, and including some of the things that are underground. So when you think about the things that build community, you need water. We have water and environmental programs that help communities to actually deliver quality drinking water and to remove waste from those communities. We have community facility program that funds, if you have ever driven through small towns in North Dakota, any of them that have a hospital, a healthcare, a pretty substantial healthcare presence, we often help them finance the building of a hospital, of a clinic, of any sort of healthcare provider. So Cooperstown, Candu, Northwood, Jamestown, all of those communities, Rugby, just in the last fiscal year, worked with us to be able to finance new hospital projects in those communities. We also have business and cooperative programs, high-speed internet programs. We fund the infrastructure for rural electrics to deliver electricity to rural communities. So lots of different ways that those dollars are used.
Well, that's super interesting. I had no idea there was something like that.
Yeah.
So you just informed one person already.
Well, good. I'm doing my job.
And Erin, when you say rural communities, is there a certain size that rural community has to be? Like there's a cutoff on that you can help out?
Yeah, that's a question we get asked a lot. A lot of those limitations are determined by Congress, and then we follow the rules that are set for us. But in North Dakota, it's pretty easy to tell what communities are going to be eligible for our programs and which ones aren't, with a few very minor exceptions. If you exclude our largest communities of Fargo, Grand Forks, Bismarck, Minot, those are communities that rarely are eligible for rural development programs. A lot of them are for populations of 20,000 and under. Some are 10,000 and under. So, that's most of North Dakota. Most of North Dakota towns.
Right. And do you find a lot of those towns, since you've been on board here for about a year, do you find a lot of those towns struggling at all?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the challenges of living and thriving in rural communities are more pronounced because of lesser access to resources.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about projects in our larger communities, even building a house, it's easier to find a home builder who's going to make money building a house in Bismarck than it is to find one who will drive out 3 hours from here and be able to make money building a house in a small town. So those challenges are just that much more difficult when it comes to resources, workforce. But I tell you what, the people deserve as great a quality of life and access to resources as those of us who live in larger communities do. And more often than not, their leadership and their community spirit is more willing to look at all of the different options to make it happen.
Right. And I had a couple of quick questions before we hit bottom of the hour here, Erin.
Sure.
How, with this being done with these small communities, which is awesome, how difficult would it be for these smaller communities, the rural areas, to sustain themselves or to continue developing? How more difficult would it be without doing what you guys are doing?
Well, to be fair, we are not interested in making bad loans either. So we make loans to folks who can show that they have the ability to repay them. But if you look at Rural Development's portfolio, we are like the 12th largest bank in the country based on assets, and that's because there's greater ability to take on that risk that happens when you're trying to take on the costs, the extreme amount of costs that it takes, for example, to put fiber in the ground to deliver high-speed internet. There's a reason why rural places are so often left out by some of the largest companies, and it's because they can't make money putting that infrastructure in place to get really rural, really remote people service. So the federal government makes money available to make that an actual viable option for places like North Dakota.
Right. And that's a really big thing that's going on right now within North Dakota itself, is trying to get that high-speed internet across the entire state. And I want to say, this is what I heard, is that they want to be the first state that every single person has access to high-speed internet. Is that correct? So is that the main thing that you're seeing the money being asked for or used for?
That is, so I will give credit to North Dakota. They were ahead of the curve in trying to deliver high-speed internet to really rural places. Now, through the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law in Congress, which both of our U.S. senators supported and the president signed, that appropriated more dollars to create a really targeted program for grant money and low-interest loans to find those pockets of places in North Dakota and all across the country that have yet to be developed and to deliver the level of high-speed internet service that people deserve to be able to function in 2023, really.
Yep.
I mean, you basically almost need it in today's world. And even with agriculture, there's being such a high demand for the technology increasing, the Wi-Fi, the GPS, it's all just becoming electrified, which is amazing, but you need to have access to it in the first place. Well, but there's other programs that you're focusing on, isn't there?
There are, and I wanted to talk directly, because I know this is kind of an ag-focused segment. I wanted to talk about 3 opportunities that really impact our agriculture producers and that sector. So thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. The first would be our Rural Energy for America program. The acronym for that is REAP, R-E-A-P. That supports any efforts that an ag producer or a rural small business would make to reduce their energy consumption and make their operation more efficient, or to produce renewable energy, likely through the purchase of a commercially available eligible technology like solar, wind, geothermal. So REAP offers grant funding of up to 40% of your total eligible project costs to make those upgrades and improvements more affordable for you. And a number of North Dakota ag producers across the state have already utilized this program. Places like Flasher, Gwinner, Devils Lake, Hankinson, Willow City, Kenmare. Ag producers have used this to replace lighting, heating, cooling, ventilation, to install more efficient grain dryers, use automated controls to bring, again, down the costs of their operations. So that is one program. And with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, directed an additional $2.2 billion to rural development for REAP through 2031. So we're really excited about the opportunity to be able to serve more North Dakota producers and rural small businesses with that increase. And the average grant size across the country has been $50,000. So the more I'm able to share that opportunity, and our team is able to share that opportunity, the more interest there really is in making a jump to something that a lot of producers know they have to do, or they've been waiting to do, and this is kind of an incentive to do it.
Interesting. And Erin, we have a caller called in. They didn't want to go on the air, but they said they wanted to ask where you get your funding from. Is it from the Ag Bill?
So the Farm Bill it does support some of the funding for rural development programs. Actually, most of the funding for rural development programs comes through the omnibus bill. So a lot of the policy directing us to administer programs has language in the Farm Bill, but most of our funding comes from the omnibus bill.
Now, with the Farm Bill, I believe that's coming up later this year. Any worries? Yeah. Any worries about the Farm Bill passing? And is there anything in the Farm Bill that you would like to see introduced?
I don't want to have to worry about the Farm Bill passing, and I am in a position where I can't lobby for anything. My job is to advocate to North Dakotans the opportunities that exist because of the passage of these kinds of legislation. So what I want is for rural development to be able to keep doing its good work, and the Farm Bill allows us to do that. I don't know if it's okay if I talk about a couple other programs, because I don't want to run out of time, and I want to make sure your listeners know that. Okay.
Yep.
The Value Added Producer Grant is another opportunity specific for ag producers with two purposes. One is a maximum grant of $75,000 to use for planning, feasibility studies, marketing plans, business plans. If you want to take what you already grow, produce, raise, and add value to it to create a new market, essentially. The other is a maximum of $250,000 for working capital to cover those processing costs, marketing costs, and advertising. So for folks who want some really concrete examples, North American Bison near New Rockford utilized this program to open an export market into Mexico. Cows and Co Creamery near Carrington accessed this program for working capital to turn the milk from their dairy farm into gelato and cheese. They opened now a retail store, a coffee shop. They're expanding into Bruhala in Fargo. So somebody who's already an egg producer who wanted to use what they produce to create something new to sell. And Shepherd Industries in Nome also use that to process the wool from the sheep that they raise and create market felting kits that now they sell out of the Nome schoolhouse that they remodeled. Applications for that value-added producer grant should be open any day. So if that sounds of interest, let us know. You can search for us at USDA RD North Dakota, rd.usda.gov /ND, or just Google the Value Added Producer Grant from Rural Development. And then the last way that we're really helping rural development specifically, USDA is investing $1 billion into expanding local meat and poultry processing capacity. So within just the last number of months, we announced a grant of almost $500,000 to a meat processor down in Little Mott, North Dakota. And that is specifically a program that goes to processors themselves. And we also have granted $15 million to the Lewis and Clark Development Group in Mandan, who will use that to establish a revolving loan fund that any meat processor in North Dakota can access. So they would work with Lewis and Clark Development Group if they need a low barrier, hopefully low interest loan that they need to expand or to get into that field. So wanted to share those. Hopefully it's ways that we're targeting federal dollars with accountability tied to it to ensure that we address gaps in the food supply chain, and we help local producers either get into markets that they would like to get into or make their operations more efficient.
That's great. And Erin, if it wasn't
that is super awesome.
Yeah, if it wasn't for what you do, what would happen to our rural ag community?
So, I mean, I grew up in a town of 650 people in North Dakota. And I tell you what, they are some of the hardiest bunch of people you'd ever meet. When they see a challenge that they want to overcome, they'll figure out a way to do it. And oftentimes, whether I like it or whether I agree with it or not, there is this assumption that all government is bad, and that any access to a government program is somehow negative or a bailout or something. I mean, these programs exist for the purposes of literally improving people's quality of life. If a rural community is a place that they want to live and raise a family and grow old, and to be able to keep our producers on their land doing what they do best, so that they don't have to drive 3 hours to be able to access everything they want to access from a community.
Mm-hmm. Well, Erin, I want to thank you very much for shedding light on this program, what it is that you do, these opportunities that are available for rural North Dakota, which makes up most of the state, believe it or not, for most people. If people want to get more information about these different programs, how they can maybe apply for some of these grants, and a little bit more information just about what it is that you guys are doing, where is a website or a couple spots again that they could go to get that information, or to maybe get in contact with somebody or yourself?
Sure. So a couple ways. You can go to rd.usda.gov /ND. You can call us anytime, and there is no such thing as a dumb question. We can, if it's not something we do, we will at least give you, try to give you, a lifeline to somewhere else. Our phone number is 701-530-2037. And there's also a pretty cool resource that our national office just launched. It's the Rural Data Gateway. You can see investments from over the course of the last more than decade that rural development has made into rural communities across the country. And you can specifically narrow in on North Dakota to see what some of those investments look like. I don't even think I mentioned the fact that we have housing programs to support individuals looking to purchase a home in a rural community, looking to repair their home. So if those are things, if you're listening, because I know egg producers also typically are homeowners, if your house needs some repair and it's something that we can help with, give us a call. And again, if we can't help you, we'll try to give you a better place to seek it. But we'd be happy to be that resource for you in finding some solutions to any challenges you have.